to the first of our video instruction manual series. This is David Vatcher and Michael Vatcher from TriVatch Games, and in this video we want to show you the game content and components. So first I just want to show you what your box is going to look like once you receive it and open it up. So once we open it up, we have our instruction manual. I'm going to start from the top to the bottom. So right here at the top we have our 5 chapter cards. We have a baggie of components, dice, and other tokens. We have our time tracker, our Rockman tile, and our board tiles. Now, we've custom designed this box to include these ribbons. These ribbons are used for separating your game and easily removing components out of the game, as well as the cards. You can organize your game box however you'd like. So right there's the tiles. This little cubby, we also have our player tokens. And for purposes, your game will come package sealed like these for your cards, but to give you an example of how the ribbons are used, I've opened this package here and separated the cards out. So under this tab I have just my equipment cards, and then under this other tab I have my monster cards. And that is the game content.
The first thing you'll notice when you open your box of Rakasa is there's a lot of things in the game. This is because Rakasa is a sandbox style game. In other words, it has an open gameplay structure. Players are able to create different quests, adventures, and stories of their own. They can also look up other players' creations on trivatch.com, and they could also play through the standard introductory 5 chapters that come in the game. You don't always play with everything that's in the box. Depending on what type of story you're playing, what type of adventure you're playing through, you're going to use different components of the game. That may be all of them at once, depending on how epic your adventures could be, or it might be just a few of them. Now we're going to go ahead and start looking at the different components in the game, and we will start with the monster cards. And in your game you'll see that in Fordra, Legend of Rakasa Fordra, you have the ocean and the forest and some roads. And so there's 3 types of monsters in the game. All monsters have speed, power, and defense on them. That's what you're using or comparing when you're battling them. They also drop spoils, so after you defeat them, on their card they have a spot where it lists the spoils that are available to use. Another thing, monsters after defeated, they can be used as lures to lure other monsters out of battle to a separate battle. The cards also have extra text that tells more story and helps you understand what these creatures are, why they're important in Rakasa. All creatures and all items throughout the whole game all have a Doru value. It's the currency of Rakasa. These cards also have star rank, and monsters in Legend of Rakasa Fordra range from 1-star rank to 3-star rank. And there's 20 unique monsters in the game, and that's not including the epic dragons that we'll introduce later on. And that's about it on the monsters. Something else to also pay attention to is there's a little branch number on the different cards. Not a huge important element to pay attention to, but it is useful for upgrading and as a reference for remembering stat allocation with monsters. So just a little detail you could take a look at. And those are that's a rough look at our monsters that we have in the game. You could go ahead and flip through your decks. You could see there's just a variety of monsters. Something to note also, they also say the name of the different places that they're from on all the back of the decks. So pretty simple. They go out on your game board tiles that match them.
Okay, now that you have a general understanding of monsters, we're going to move into equipment. There are a lot of similarities with the equipment cards and the monster cards, and some slight differences. First off, equipment, there are 4 types of equipment. you have a weapon, an armor, footgear, and headgear. The armor, footgear, and headgear relate in that they increase your speed or defense, or both. The weapons are unique in that they are the only equipment item that increases power. They also, from 2-star and above, have a skill, a weapon skill associated with a particular weapon. As you can see, I've laid out an example of equipment sets from 1-star to 3-star, and you can see that we have a number of cards over on the side as the deck. There are 36 unique equipment cards in the game of Legends of Rakasa Fordra. Now, let's review the cards here. So, similar to monster cards, we have a equipment item name. We have a star ranking. We have the stat allocation. This is the stat increase to yourself. So each equipment boosts your own individual stats. Instead of showing spoils in the equipment, we see the upgrade requirements. So this is what is needed to upgrade this particular equipment item. This 2-star happens to have 3 options. Notice the tiers. Remember on the monster cards we had a tier for crafting reference. You'll see that same tier show up on the equipment. Something you also have on some cards is the flavor text, just like we have on monster cards. And the last thing would be the Doru value for market exchange. Then the last thing would be across Fordra on monster cards and equipment cards, you're going to see little icons similar to this star with an LE in the middle of it. There's also a few circles you may not recognize, which is a red M and a yellow D. These indicate expansions. Legends of Rakasa isn't designed just to be Fordra, and our expansions aren't designed to just be tacked on. They have been integrated as one game, and all the parts and components have been balanced. So those will be a future release.
The Legends of Rakasa market is made up of 6 items. There's a Terrapong Stone, Camouflage Tarp, Grappling Hook, Honey, Isopropanol, and Refined Mercury. There's 4 of each card. They all have a Doru value of 100. As we mentioned on the introduction of the other cards, items, monsters, equipment, all have a Doru value, and they can be traded with other players or in the market. The top row are our tools. And there's, again, Terrapong Stone. It's for searching, looking at decks. Camouflage Tarp lets you flip through cards when you're drawing. Grappling Hook lets you move. The potion items, we have Honey, Isopropanol, Mercury. They boost your stats. Honey puts your speed up 1, Isopropanol puts your power up 1, and Mercury puts your defense up 1. With the market cards, we also are going to introduce the storage trunks. These don't go in the market, but they're another item that you'll find in Rakasa. Storage trunks don't have a definite, defined purpose in the game. You'll see in the introductory chapters that they're used in 2 chapters and in 2 very different ways.
Now that you have an understanding of monsters, equipment, and the market, it's time to show you the epic battle of Rakasa, and that is with the dragons. The dragons, unlike the normal monsters, have 3 parts to them. This is the nice artistic view of the dragons, but as you expand them out, you will see that each part of the dragon monster has various stats, and each part assists the other stats of the dragon. We're not going to get into too many details on how we battle this. We will cover that in Chapter 5 of our video series. But just suffice it to say, these are much more difficult than fighting your average 3-star monster.
Players are introduced to the world of Rakasa through the 5 introductory chapters of Legends of Rakasa Fordra. These 5 chapters are outlined in detail in the instruction manual. These 5 reference cards, though, will help players play through the chapters without having to rely on the instruction manual as much. Each chapter has a little message, a little quote from the chief. It has a little story to get players going, to know what they're doing, where they're going, and it's marked with a little storybook. There's key mechanics in each chapter, and that's explained on the cards with the little cogs that are turning. And on the back of the cards, there may be more story, more mechanics, depending on what the events are and how they play out. Then you'll have either a success or fail on all of the cards. So every chapter, there is some quest, something for you to do, and except for chapter 3, as you see. And these, depending on how you do, there's going to be a success or fail. And the results of the chapters affect the following chapters. And so chapter 3, it ends abruptly. It doesn't have the success or fail. These 5 chapters give a good example of the things players can do with Rakasa. Just like chapter 3 doesn't have a success fail, it shows different ways players can set their games up to end, the criteria and conditions for winning, what happens if you fail. Players can link together things that they create. They could add to the chapters, alter the chapters, have side quests. They could write chapters 6, 7, 8, 9 if they'd like to. These, though, are the start. They're the reference cards that help players get going and outline the basic story of Rakasa, what's going on, why are we hunting these monsters, kind of the villagers' look on the world of Rakasa. And again, the 5 chapter cards are for your reference to help you while you're playing.
The next component we'd like to show you is the board tiles. There are 5 board tiles: a village, the ocean, forest, and 2 roads, one for the ocean, one for the forest. Now, these board tiles don't have any particular order they need to be set in, so their players are free to adjust these board tiles however they'd like. The one thing that is set on them is they all have a universal back. This allows for exploration game types where players can take the board tiles, shuffle them around, lay them down in a random order, and discover what lands lie behind these tiles. So there usually is a particular reward for discovering tiles. Now, each player, as we showed earlier in our parts component, have a player token. This represents their character. In moving, players can only move to one adjacent tile. So each turn they have a movement and can go 1 space. Now, the other thing, as Michael explained earlier with the monsters are evenly either divided on the road, and then the ocean and forest have their respective decks, as you can see. Just like that would be how we set up our game.
The next component we're going to look at are the Rockman tiles and game dice. Now, every epic RPG has a mini game in it. So does Rakasa. Rockman is a pub game played in the world of Rakasa. In the game Legends of Rakasa, it's used to determine the success of different actions requiring logic, dexterity, sometimes some chance, searching. Players can use it to determine all sorts of things. They can choose how they want to use it. Now, Rockman, it's just, there's 24 tiles with numbers and colors on them, and we have a whole section in the instruction manual and in the video instructions on how to play Rockman. So we just want to give you a look at it right now. There's also 8 dice, 4 blue, 4 green. With having just regular dice in the game, you can just do an old-fashioned roll for success of different things. The 2 colors are there so people can roll for events in the ocean and forest at the same time, movement of dragons, all sorts of stuff. Each player can also be given a blue and a green dice for different actions that they're doing, and so that's the reason we have the 2 different colors in there. It allows for that variety of action with the dice. And so with Rockman, you are using dice, and you could also use dice separately for other actions that you're taking while playing in Rakasa. The
The next component we are going to show you are the boost tokens. Actually, it's broken into two categories. There's stat boost tokens and non-stat boost tokens. As their name depicts, these tokens simply increase stats for either monsters or players. They are used in the introductory chapters in both instances. Now, you'll notice that some of the stat boost tokens have a white border and some have a yellow border. This just identifies the stat boost. So traditionally, the white bordered stat boost token only provides a +1. The yellow provide a +3. This can be adjusted by players to fit whatever needs or ideas they may have. These non-stat boost tokens, there's fear tokens that will be explained later, and there's these dragon tokens. These are just like player tokens in that during Chapter 5, they're used to track dragon movement. Similar how you track your own movement with your player token. The other thing about these tokens is that they have universal back, so all of the stat boost tokens have this sapphire gem back, and these non-stat boost have a ruby gem back. There is no set reason for these gem backs and their coloring in the introductory chapters. It's not used, but there are references and things you can use these gem backs for, and you can find that information on trivatch.com if you go to our forums.
The last of the components we have to introduce is the time tracker. Time tracker is simply a tile that has the time from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. on the front and 6 p.m. to 5 a.m. on the back. Generally, the round of player turns progresses the time 1 hour, and you just use your little tracker token to move the time along. Different events in Rakasa happen at different times. In the introductory chapters, it'll tell you you need to do something by a certain time, or if you've completed something by a certain time, you have some sort of bonus. And players can come up with their own quest and use time as a factor that progresses their story and affects what's going on. You could have different things happening at different times of the day. You could give monsters different boosts when it becomes dark. There's a lot of things players can come up with, and you'll see some examples of how time can be used in the games you play in the introductory chapters of Legends of Rakasa Fordra.